Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into some fascinating stuff. Today we're looking at Trump talk, how to actually sound like him.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. I found a couple articles and they break down his whole speaking style. It's actually pretty funny, but also kind of insightful.
Yeah, it's like its own language almost.
Totally.
Yeah.
And both these articles, they say, like, the main thing is how simple his language is.
Oh, yeah, totally. Simple sentences and just repeating important words.
Like, we will make America great again.
Great again. Yeah, exactly.
Believe me.
Exactly. And it's not just the sentences. It's like the actual words, too. Everything is huge. It's the best or the worst.
Oh, so many superlatives.
Exactly. Like tremendous, fantastic, or total disaster, nothing in between, you know.
So, like, if you're telling your friend to go to this restaurant, you'd be like, this restaurant? The best, folks. The absolute best. Unbelievable food. Unbelievable service. You'll love it. Believe me.
Now you're getting it. But it's more than just the words, right?
Yeah, true.
Both articles talk about how important, like, body language is.
The hand gestures.
Yes.
I remember reading about that. Lots, the pointing, the okay sign, and those big arm movements.
It's like he's conducting an orchestra, but with words.
Exactly. Total command of the room. And then there's the whole putting down opponents thing.
Yeah, he's a master at that.
Both sources talk about that. Super direct, simple labels that just stick in your head.
Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe, you know, that kind of thing.
And it works. Whether you like them or not, those names stick. It makes you think, do we all just respond to these simple, strong messages?
That's a really interesting question. It gets at, like, the core of why this style works on people.
Yeah, why it's so powerful. So we've got the simple language, the huge exaggerations, the nicknames, the body language. What else is classic Trump talk?
Well, they both talk about how informal and conversational he is.
Like he's just chatting with you.
Yeah, not a big formal speech. He uses all these everyday words like, folks, believe me, you know, that kind of thing.
Makes it feel like he's your buddy, just sharing his thoughts over coffee.
Exactly. A lot of people find that appealing. You know, breaks down barriers.
Even if it's all carefully planned out.
Right, exactly. Makes him seem relatable, even if it's a persona.
So we're starting to get the basics of Trump talk down. But how do you actually do it? Like, if I wanted to talk like Trump right now, what would I say?
Let's say you're trying to convince your landlord to lower the rent. How would you do it Trump style?
Okay, let me channel my inner Trump. Listen, this rent, it's a disaster, a total disaster. I'm a good tenant, the best tenant you've ever had. And this apartment, it's great, it's fantastic. But the rent, it's just not fair. We need to make this deal great again, believe me.
You nailed it. The repetition, the exaggeration, the confidence, it's all there.
It's funny how even if the arguments themselves aren't that great, the delivery can be really convincing. But let's step back for a second. Besides imitating him for fun, what can we learn from Trump talk on a deeper level?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is the power of simplicity. His language isn't fancy, but it gets through all the clutter. In a world with so much information, maybe people want that directness, even if it comes with some exaggeration.
Yeah, I can see that. He kind of skips all the complicated stuff and goes straight for the emotional part of things.
Yeah.
And that connects with people, especially when they're already feeling frustrated.
Exactly. And that leads to a big question. Is this just a Trump thing, or does it say something deeper about how we communicate and how we're persuaded?
Ooh, that's getting deep.
Yeah.
Are we all vulnerable to these persuasive techniques, no matter who's using them?
It's definitely something to think about. That's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're not just learning to imitate, we're exploring how communication itself works.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered the main parts of Trump talk. We've tried it out ourselves. Now I'm wondering, when does this style actually work best? Are there certain situations where it's especially effective?
I think both sources would say Trump talk really shines when emotions are high.
Like at rallies and debates. When the energy's up and people want a strong leader?
Right. Simple language and big statements cut through all the noise. It's about appealing to emotion, not logic.
Yeah, creating a connection or a shared feeling.
Exactly. And don't forget the body language. All those gestures and expressions probably make a huge difference in those situations.
Totally. Pointing those big hand movements, the facial expressions, it's all part of the show.
It is a performance. And in those settings where people are already fired up, it can be really persuasive.
You know, both sources actually had some classic Trump talk lines. And reading them, I can hear his voice perfectly. It's so unique.
Oh, absolutely. One that stuck with me was, we're going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning. Yeah. You're going to say, please, Mr. President, please, we can't take it anymore. We're winning too much.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It's so over the top, but it's also funny and kind of appealing. Like he's promising this perfect world.
Right. And he just repeats, win, win, win. Simple but effective.
What other examples were there?
Another one is, it really doesn't matter what the media writes as long as you've got a young and beautiful piece of ass.
Whoa. Okay, that one's definitely a little much.
It is. It's crass, but it fits his persona, Bold, unconventional. For some people, that's what they like about him.
He doesn't care about being politically correct.
Right. And in a world where everyone's so careful what they say, that can be refreshing to some.
So we've looked at the techniques, the examples. Where does Trump talk fall on the scale of good communication versus just manipulating people? It seems like a blurry line.
That's the big question, isn't it? And it goes way beyond just Trump. Think about advertising, marketing, even just talking to people every day. We're always getting messages trying to change our minds.
It's true. We're drowning in persuasion. It's hard to know who to believe.
Exactly. So it's super important to think critically, take a step back, look at the message and ask yourself, what's the speaker's goal? What are they trying to get me to do?
And that's with everything, not just Trump talk. We have to be smart about the information we're taking in.
Absolutely. Now, about that line between good communication and manipulation, I think a lot depends on the speaker's intent and their methods.
So if they're trying to trick people, that's bad.
Yeah. If the goal is to use people's feelings or biases for their own benefit, that's crossing the line.
Like, there's a difference between using this style for a good cause versus using it to divide people or spread harmful stereotypes.
Exactly. And that's why we need to be aware of manipulation, especially now when information spreads so fast.
Sounds like there's no easy answer then. It's about being aware of the techniques, figuring out the speaker's goals, and just thinking critically about what we're hearing.
I think that's a great point. It's about being smarter about information and realizing that persuasion is powerful, but it's up to us to use it responsibly.
Well said. So we've broken down Trump talk, how it works, when it works, but isn't there a danger of oversimplifying things? Like losing nuance and complexity when we focus on these broad techniques?
That's true. We can't just look at the surface. The world is complicated.
Right, there's always more to the story. But even with that in mind, I'm still fascinated by how effective this style can be. It's rallied people, changed things, even won elections.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
It's powerful. But that's why it's even more important to be aware of the downsides.
Like when it's used to mislead people, or even worse, encourage violence.
Exactly. When emotion takes over completely and facts don't matter anymore, that's dangerous.
People stop thinking for themselves, and that's when they're vulnerable to, like, propaganda and all kinds of bad stuff.
Right. So are we saying Trump talk is all bad?
Yeah, should we just reject the whole thing?
I don't think so. I mean, there are good things to learn from it, like how to be simple and direct, how to connect with your audience emotionally. Those are valuable skills.
So the techniques themselves aren't good or bad. It depends how they're used.
Right. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
So it's not about just copying Trump. It's about understanding how it works and then deciding how to use that knowledge responsibly.
I like that. Being aware of the techniques, figuring out the speaker's intentions. That's how we become smarter consumers of information.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not just about Trump talk. It's about communication in general. And maybe being a little more skeptical, a little more critical of everything we hear.
That's a great way to put it. Being informed, engaged, ready to challenge things, that's how we can make sure we're not being manipulated.
Well said. This has been a really interesting deep dive.
I agree. We've gone deep into Trump talk, how it works, why it works, and all the ethical questions it brings up.
I definitely feel like I understand it better now.
I hope our listeners do too. That's the whole point of these deep dives, to give you the knowledge and tools to make sense of the world.
Absolutely. Before we finish, I just wanted to leave everyone with a few final thoughts.
Go for it.
We've talked about how powerful Trump talk is, but I think the important thing to remember is that communication goes both ways.
Ooh, good point.
It's not just about the person talking. It's about the person listening too. We have to be active listeners, think about what we're hearing, and be open to talking with people even when we don't agree.
I couldn't agree more. The best way to fight manipulation is to be informed, engaged, and ready to speak up for what you believe in.
Well said. I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It has been a great discussion.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp.
See you next time.
I just want to give another shout out to Micky from Mickytolife. His channel is a treasure trove of inspiration, and he's a huge Sip&Talk fan.
Absolutely. Make sure to check him out and maybe even share your awesome podcast intro with him once you've created it.